Okay, we'll get started with this. I'm just talking here about Wendy, introducing her. She's a local woodworker. Wanted to learn a little bit about this, so I invited her over and wanted to go through a little tutorial. So this is just going to be the first video. These are in no particular order. These are just some of my build videos I wanted to kind of condense into one long, easy, small project, roughly small project videos that pretty much anybody can complete. So hope you enjoy the look back in time. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do here is cut these down to size. If you order his plans, what you're going to see is this is made out of one single fence picket. I try to pick the best ones from the home store. It's hit or miss. Just try to get one that doesn't have a ton of knots in it. But your first two cuts are going to be at 12 inches. That's going to make up your two ends. We'll cut an angle in those here in just a minute. And then you're just going to cut 3 sections at 14 inches. You can also rip these first and then cut them into their individual lengths. I actually prefer to go ahead and break them down on the miter saw to more manageable pieces. Either way is fine though. Going to come back here, and this is actually a 40-degree angle you're going to cut. You just need to make sure at the top section there you leave 1 3/4 inches. You need that to have your main top piece fit on there in the end. So going to go ahead and sand these down. I just give them a rough sanding. I kind of like the unfinished type look. If you're going to paint them or something like that, you certainly can finish sand these up to about 120 grit or whatever you want to do. I just grab 60 or 80 grit and just really knock all the little fuzzies off, and that's basically as far down as I get it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut these to their final width. The little end pieces are going to be a final width of 5.5 inches. You want to make sure you cut from the small end because remember you need that 1 3/4 inches on the top side there. Then I'm going to move my fence in and we're going to cut all the rest of these up into 1.5 inch strips. You should get 9 of these out of the boards you have left, your 3 14-inch pieces there. Okay, now that we've got everything cut up, we're going to put it together. And you'll see me pause a few times here. I'm actually talking to Wendy, just telling her so she can make some notes. She's going to go home and try to build this. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. Matthew's video shows you one way how he does it. This is kind of the way I assemble this. Either way is perfectly fine. You get the same result in the end. I prefer just to use a single pre-drill bit with the countersink attached to it like this. And I just go ahead and stand them up and pre-drill them. Put a little bit of wood glue. I use Type Bond 3. And then sink in your 1-inch pocket holes screws. I actually use the pocket hole screws with the rounded head that doesn't have the little flange on it. They seem to work better. I imagine you could use the other ones too. It doesn't really matter. They just need to be 1 inch. Going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on here on each side. Make sure you just wipe out any squeeze out. You don't want it turning brown. It's either yellow or brown. You're going to get with Type Bond 2 or 3. So just a little bit of glue. It doesn't take very much at all. We're going to go through the process and putting these in. What I've done to space these out, I've just taken me a 15-inch length of just red oak that I know is perfectly straight and square. I just cut it down to 3/4 inch and I can just use it to space those out as I go up the sides. Each one of them are spaced 3/4 inch. The two top pieces here they're actually the bottom pieces. I just flush them up with the sides and then split the difference in the middle and just eyeball it. Works perfectly fine. You don't have to measure it. And here you can see that's where I use that spacer to go up on the sides. Works out really well. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get ready to drill. You need a 1/2 inch drill bit to drill your holes for your rope. You can see me marking this out. I'll leave a link in the description of the tools I'm using. This is a square that I actually picked up from taytools.com. Full disclosure, we are now an affiliate. Thank you very much, Tay Tools. Go ahead and mark this 3 inches in from the inside of the outside rail there, and then 1 inch down. And that's where you're going to drill your 1/2 inch holes. Pretty simple, straightforward. I use a little punch there to start mine. Then you just cut your rope to 29 inches, put it in each hole, tie a knot, and pull back on it, and you are done. Well, there you have it. That was pretty simple and easy to make this little fruit vegetable basket. I sell these for $35. Pretty good price, easy to get. Probably got maybe, I don't know, less than $5 in it, so it's a really good product to batch out a bunch of them real quick. It's one of the reasons I asked Wendy if she wanted to come over and learn how to make this. I had an order for about 6 of them. So that was a great time teaching Wendy how to do some of this stuff. She was taking good notes, and she's still on her journey. She's still actually woodworking. I'm happy to have lend her some kind of help along the way. So the next video we're going to get into here is another Picket video. This one's going to be about making some Christmas trees. When I'm recording this, it's around, it's in December, it's Christmas time. So let's talk about making some Christmas trees. All right, so let's get into this one. So you don't really have to do this part. I just choose to most of the time. Just a quick light sanding with 120. Very first thing you're going to do is take your single fence picket, and you're going to cut 7.5 inches off of the kind of dog-eared end. Then you're going to end up ripping that down to 3 3/4 inches wide, and the rest of the board you're going to rip down to 2 different strips of 2.5 inches wide. Every bit of this can be made with just one single fence picket. So I'm going to give you all the sizes here you need to trim these down to. Not necessarily in this order, it really doesn't matter. But you're going to have your main support, which is going to be the longest piece at 25.5 inches. And then you're going to have 4 base pieces to go around that. 2 of them at 8 inches and 2 of them at 7.5 inches. And then after that, all your 2.5 inch strips are going to be your limbs. You can cut the angles as you cut them if you want, but I don't like going back and forth, so I choose to cut them all to length first and then go back and put the 45s. But you're going to need a limb that is 10.25 inches long, and that is on the long side and of your 45. And you're going to need another one at 7.5, 9 3/4, 7 1/4, 9 1/4, 6 3/4, 8 3/4, and 6 1/4. And just in case you didn't notice, each one of those dimensions decrease on the way up by 1/2 inch on each side. After that, it's time for the glue up. The first thing you want to do is make sure you put your base together. I got these plans from Matthew Peach. I'll leave a link in the description. If you use the code STL15, you can get 15% off his plans if you like to have plans in your hand when you're doing this. It's got a really good diagram about how to put this base together, but it's pretty simple. You just overlap it. The 2 shorter sides stick out the short side, and then the longer sides stick out the face side to create your base. I just simply put some Titebond 3. Just, you never know when somebody might put this outside. It certainly can go outside. It's cedar. So I use Titebond 3 since it is waterproof. Once you do that, all you're going to do is measure up 9 inches, and the one that you cut off in the very beginning that you ripped to 3 3/4, you want to put your 45s on each side of that. It'll come out to a nice little triangle at the bottom of your tree that you're going to kind of build off of. And then you simply just have to go up and keep them, kind of even out as you go up. Back and forth, similar to, I guess, what you might consider a herringbone pattern, but that's it. You just continuously go up the tree, and I just use brad nails. I'm using 1 inch brad nails.
on the back side so you don't see them on the front. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to have some gaps. It's not a big deal. Like I said, you don't even have to sand this if you don't want to. And in the end, this makes a really good product you could sell at any kind of craft fair, especially a holiday market type thing, or simply give them away to family as a Christmas present. You've only got just a few dollars in this, and very little time. I think I knocked one of these out in a total of about 12 minutes. It really didn't take very long. Super simple for a beginner project and something that's really pretty. You can also come back if you wanted to sand this and spray it with some paint. If you wanted to color, I think it would work out good. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and we will see you in the next video. So the next video I'm going to do is building a shoe rack. We needed one for our foyer area for the kids. So that's what this is going to be about. Pretty simple to make, and let's get to it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Just got a little project I want to build here. I actually got the inspiration from Brad over at Fix This Build That. Been looking for a shoe rack. Apparently we have somewhat of a mess of shoes in our hallway that's been complained about a little bit. So probably needs to be fixed. So I've been looking for a design. I like the one he did. This is going to be a little different. Use a little bit different wood. Actually have some wood laying around that I guess I never did get to. I'm going to use it. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, to get started, I've got some 8-quarter cherry that I've apparently had up here for a long time and gotten a lot of things in the way of it. So it's taken me a minute to get it out. I'm going to get it down and cut it pretty close to its final length here. I'm going to leave a link to the description of the plans from Brad over at Fix This Build That, because I did use his exact measurements, even though I didn't use the same wood, and I did a couple of different things. But we're going to go ahead and cut these down. It's 24 1/4. I can't remember exactly, somewhere around there. And then I cut this block here to 11 inches. I do remember that. I want to go ahead and rip down these pieces into about 2-inch by 2-inch blocks. Was a little too big to go through my jointer, so I'm going to go ahead and rip these down, then I'm going to go back and joint all the faces later. Not super worried about exact measurements as far as everything being parallel. Not worried about that on this project. So I'm just going to set my fence to 2 inches here and cut me some blocks out. I did have to remove my stock guides because they were just going to get in the way. And then it was right about here where I realized, when I made my new workbench and leveled the table up, that I leveled the side to the saw a little too high. So I've got to go fix all that. So now it's unleveled, but at least I brought the end down that was closest to the saw here in just a second, so I can at least get everything cut. I'm gonna have to go back and fix that. I did get a new rip blade from Cedar Toy Box. I'll put a link in the description to that. Will be an affiliate link to our partnership with them now. Super good ripping blade. Been very happy with it. Now that we've got all these cut down to roughly 2 by 2, we're going to go ahead and take them over to my jointer and basically just run them through to give me a smooth surface on each of the faces. again, like I said, I don't really care about them being perfectly parallel or exact. This project doesn't necessarily require that. Sorry about the little vibration there. I actually had this mounted to the jointer itself, and this thing vibrates quite a bit. So sorry about that. And you can see the camera sitting at the end of it. Anyway, we're going to get all these taken care of here. Excuse the mess in the shop in the background. I promise I do clean up after every single project. These are simply just your box store 1x6s. We're going to go ahead and cut them to length. Those should be about 36 inches a piece, and that accounts for about a ½ inch overhang on the outside of the frames that I'm putting together here. Okay, so don't give me any flack. Yes, I'm going to use the domino simply because I have it. I want a little practice with it because I'm pretty new to it. But truthfully, you can do this project with pretty much any joinery you want to. Probably one of the easiest things to do would be to use pocket holes. If you've got a pocket hole jig, just put you some pocket holes, put them on the bottom. They'll be out of sight. You'll never see them. So I decided to use dominoes just because I really wanted some practice with it. And it works as well. Not necessarily for strength here as much as alignment purposes. And then I go grab some clamps, and right about here is when I realized, yeah, that's not going to work. Not quite long enough. So I had to go get some bigger clamps to clamp these up. I did use some fast drying Top Bond here in the quick set. Dries in about 30 minutes. So you're able to start working with it again pretty quick. Basically here I'm going to come back with 80 grit sandpaper just to go ahead and knock everything down. I want to smooth over the edges just to give it a nicer look. And then I'm going to come back and go up to about 120. I don't think you really need any more than that. And in the end, what I'm going to do is throw a couple, maybe 3 coats of shellac on this. I think that'll be just fine. This is going in the foyer, literally just to catch you, so it'll be fine. Grab my setup blocks here. I want about a ½ inch overhang on each side. And the easiest way to do this is to flip this upside down. Your top shelf is actually going to be underneath, so you have that lip on the top. And then your bottom 2 shelves are going to rest on the one below it. So for the bottom 2, or the bottom one here, it was definitely easier for me to put it on the ground, clamp it up, drill some holes, and put it in that way. So it works. And here's the finished product. It looks pretty good, I think. Super simple. Definitely took care of the mess we had, and hey, it works.
Okay, this next video is going to be about a picnic table. This is going to be me doing an entirely too long of an introduction video, but hey, that's okay. You learn a lot from when you're first starting recording stuff to as you gain some experience and talk to other people. So I'm just going to talk a little bit here about the plans that are available for this and where you can get them. And then we're just going to kind of go through the build process of just a small picnic table for kids. I think it's a really cool project, and I do sell a lot of these locally at local fairs and stuff. So let's get into the build.
All right, let's get to the build.
Okay, first thing we're going to do, well, first let me tell you, you're going to need a 2x4x10 and 3 2x6x8s to do this project. Little tip here in the beginning, make sure you cut your longest pieces first. Your first cuts are going to be at 34.5 inches to get your benches and your tabletop pieces. Make sure you save that little end piece there. You're going to need it here in just a few minutes for another part. You want to set your angle when you're looking to do your legs at 38 degrees. That's going to give you the right angle for the right height at this size. I take a little stop block here. You can do it however you want. And I pull this up because your legs are going to be 18 inches long. And that's going to be angle to angle. So I just put a little stop block there, and I just make my first cut here at the very end of the board, and then just simply slide it down because these cuts are going to be going from the same direction. So opposite directions on the cuts, but you won't have to flip the board over. So you just move it right up to your stop block or whatever mark you have, and then you just continually make your cuts. You're going to need a total of 4 of these, and like I said, they will be 18 inches long from angle to angle. This is that board I told you to save a few minutes ago, kind of the offcut, because to do this out of 3 pieces of wood, you actually have to save that offcut because you're going to cut your final leg piece out of that. Then you're going to move your saw to 22 degrees. This is going to be the angle for your little stretchers that go across the frame to hold your bench seat on. And with this one, you will have to switch after every cut, meaning you'll have to flip the board over and then you continuously cut. Now here I'm doing something a little different. I don't have the room to cut a 10-foot piece that short to trim off the edge. So basically what I had to do was I went an inch longer and cut my angle. That way I can just flip it over, and when I make my cut on this end, it will be right. And then I will just continue with the board from there, flipping it over and getting my pieces. You're going to need 2 of these longer at 34.5 angle to angle, outside angle to outside angle. And then you're going to need 2 smaller ones that will be your top portion that will be 16 inches outside angle to outside angle. Remember, just make it a habit to cut your longer ones first. And again, here you see I flip these over and then move up to my stop block. And basically the easiest way to line this up is, like, I have a straight edge here, obviously a level just clamped to my workbench. It's going to give me a base to set my legs so they come together perfectly and set flat. I pre-drilled the top. You technically don't have to. It just makes it easier, in my opinion, for the screw to go in. I don't pre-drill all the way through both of them, just the top one, just to give me a good starting point. And when you put these on, you want the top to come out about 2.5 inches, and then the bottom one is going to come out 5.5 inches, because you're going to have to obviously be able to fit your board, your seats on here, and you want a little bit of an overhang so that angle doesn't protrude out. And that's basically what it looks like. Super simple. Here we're going to do the other side. Got to do one just like the other. Checking my measurements there. Of course, this thing doesn't have to be dead on perfect. I do get a little OCD about some things, as you'll see when I go to put the tabletop on and using a setup block. But that's pretty much it. Just rinse and repeat. Do the exact same thing to that side, and you've got both of them. I will say, if I had this to do over again and going forward when I make these, I'm actually going to set me up a little clamp or something, because I didn't put it on video because it was very annoying, but they kept falling to one side or the other on me because I was having a hard time holding them up. So I am going to get a clamp to make that a little bit easier next time when I do these. Same thing here. You're going to want about a 2.5 inch overhang on each end, and you should have slight, maybe a 1/16 of an inch overhang on the outside where the angle's cut on that bottom piece. A couple of screws. Be careful whenever you're screwing the benches on. You don't want to go all the way to the edge on the outside of that bench, because you'll actually come through that angle. Remember, we cut that angle on the bottom piece. The top pieces here, same thing. You want the same overhang on each side. I put the 2 outside pieces on first so that they are flush, or just slightly like a 30-second over on the outside. And then here I am with the setup block. But really, you just need to split the difference with that center piece and just put it in the middle, and don't stress over it being 3/16 of an inch like I was. And then basically I'm just going to come back and sand everything down. Of course, sand the stamp off and everything. You want to round over all these edges. You can do it with a round over if you got a little palm router, or like me, I simply just break the edges with a sander. You don't want any kids getting splinters or cutting themselves. And I try to go over the whole thing and break all the edges. I'm not going to paint this one. I typically sell them unpainted or unstained. That way anybody can do whatever they want. I may offer in the future the option to paint or to stain them, maybe for an additional cost. But it's a great little project, and had a lot of fun building it. Didn't take long. Took me about 40 minutes. So turned out good. So this video I really enjoyed doing. This was a project that I actually got commissioned to do by a good friend and a co-worker. Wanted me to build a flag case for his father, who actually was a veteran who passed away, I believe, about a year ago. In the end, I wound up gifting this to him as a gift for Christmas, I believe it was. I just really wanted to do that for him. This was my first flag case, so I kind of learned a lot in this process, as you're going to see, but it was a lot of fun building this, and it was a great gift to be able to give to him. So let's get into the video.
So let's go ahead and get us a couple of flat edges here, one flat face and one flat edge, so I can run it through the table saw. What I didn't mention in the intro about this board, and he doesn't know yet, is I'm actually going to just give this to him as a Christmas present, no charge. I felt like it's the right thing to do. Probably one of the most decent human beings you could ever meet, and just an all-around nice guy.
So one thing you're going to notice in some of these videos, in the beginning I got a pretty big kick out of putting music in the background. Of course, this was all like YouTube music or royalty-free music, so nothing copyrighted, so to speak. So I apologize in advance if the music gets on your nerves, but hey, I was just experimenting. So okay, anyway, let's get back to it.
So once we got that good straight edge, I'm going to go ahead and rip these down. Going by the flag thickness, and each flag can be a little different, so make sure you measure yours before you do this. We're looking at 3 3/4 total inches, because you got to account for the glass as well as the backing. So I'm going to go ahead and rip all these boards down to 3 3/4 inches. One thing I did purchase, which was a very good deal, especially making something like this, but for more projects in the future, is this Infinity Tools vertical router sled. Makes pretty short work of getting these angles. I didn't film all of them here, but you have to cut, of course, the top of your shorter boards at a 90-degree angle, and then your ends of your short boards and both ends of your long boards at 67.5 degrees. That's going to give you your full 180. Pretty difficult angle to cut unless you have a jig of some type. This one you can make your own. I just didn't find it productive to take the time to make my own. It was easier just to buy one. Works very well. I will leave a link in the description. So I like to dry fit everything just to make sure. I'll even put it in a band clamp just to make sure everything's going to line up properly before I cut my grooves for my glass. I do blade kerf grooves. It's 1/8 of an inch standard blade kerf, and it's easier just to get 1/8 inch glass. It's a lot lighter too, so I just do one single pass, and I do right at 1/4 of an inch deep on each one as well. And it was at this point I realized, hey buddy, you screwed up. What I didn't do was account for the distance of the angle when I did my measuring and cutting. So essentially, I cut everything the distance of the angle too short. So I had to go back, and off camera, I went back and redid everything up until this point. So I had to start over. You live and you learn. Something else you will notice, my second mistake, because I actually messed up the measurement on the repeat and ended up cutting the boards too short overall. So lots of mistakes were made in this one, but hey, you live and you learn. So you'll see a big difference between what the boards actually look like here and then what they look like in the finished product. That's because I had to cut everything a third time. But at least third time was a charm. And I also have to say that the material I used for the final product ended up looking a lot better in hindsight. So I guess the mistakes made actually turned out to be a better looking product in the end. Here I could have put in a dado stack to get these rabbits on the end, but it was just a lot easier to do it this way since it was such a short distance. So basically here what you're going to see is a silent me, because someone forgot to pair their microphone with their phone, their Bluetooth, when they started talking. But basically what I'm telling you is that you see some different background between these two, because this spanned me moving a lot of equipment into my new shop. It's certainly not done yet, but this took about a month or so over the whole course of it, and I really needed to get it done before Christmas. So there's some things like this base that I've made here that you're seeing. I did that off camera. Quite frankly, I just didn't have time to set up and shoot because I wanted to make sure I could give this to him by Christmas Eve, as well as the taping up here and gluing and putting the splines in the case. I use a pretty simple method to put my splines in. I actually just use my biscuit joiner. It works out great, super fast, and I didn't have to build a jig for it or buy one, so it works out really well. So I'm going to go ahead and use my flush cut saw here and trim off the splines and then do a good little sanding. Still had some glue residue I need to get rid of. I also rounded over the top 90-degree angle just to make it look a little better. Here I'm going to go ahead and attach this base. Basically I'm just going to set it up here and clamp it in place, and then I'm going to pre-drill and then countersink an area. I'm just simply going to run some 1 1/4" screws, 4 of them, 2 on each end, just to secure this to the base. Here I have a little block of wood, basically, that I just super glued this brass engraving to. It was his father's name and rank in the military, as well as his birthday and the day he passed. Here is the final fit, and just wanted to make sure that it was going to fit before I went ahead and put the finish on. One thing I used here that I've never used in the past was Rubio Monocoat, and I have to say I am quite pleased with it. It turned out absolutely beautiful. I did, however, mix way more than I needed. So going forward, I know that a little of this goes a very long way. Now we're going to go ahead and get the flag in there, and you'll notice I didn't finish the inside of the box. I didn't feel it would be necessary since you wouldn't see it. Go ahead and get the back panel put on. For the back, I'm just simply using 1/4" birch plywood. Made a nice contrast with the box. Looks good. I'm just going to throw some small brad nails in here and get it put up. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Would love it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up button. And we will see you on the next build.
That really was a lot of fun to build. So on the next one, I made these little Christmas tree candle holder bases. These were pretty cool. These actually sell pretty well if you sell at shows and stuff like that, especially around the holidays. So we're going to kind of go over that, and let's go.
So my saw doesn't have the marks on it like some of the other brands, like the Ryobi, I know for sure does. In any case, I'm just taking a pencil here and I'm going to mark a few sizes if you want to take note and want to make one of these for yourself. One of the first marks I make is at 3 7/8. That's the length I want the base. It's already 3.5 inches wide because I'm using 1x4s. The next mark is going to be at 4.5 inches. That's going to be the top of the tree. The next one is 6.5 inches. It's the middle section. And the last one is 9 inches, and that's going to be the bottom section. All you have to do is cut your first angle, and then every time you cut your angle, flip your board over and line it up with whatever mark you want. I simply took one 8-foot section and started with 9, 6.5, and 4.5, and so on and so forth until I used up that board. Once I've got my sections done, I just go through and cut however many bases I need at 3 7/8, and that's it, and you're done at that point. I then like to give each piece a quick little sanding with 220. Just makes it easier to work with. The next thing I do is I go through the bases or the bottom pieces and I mark the center on each one of those. Then I go through the base piece, the kind of square piece, and I mark the center of it on the 3 7/8 edge. That way it makes it easier once I get the holes drilled and everything to line it up back at the center. Once that's done, the next step is glue up. I just use Titebond 2 since it doesn't have to be food safe and I can get this done pretty quick. Works very well. I use a single clamp right on the center with very, very little pressure. Seems to work very well. Doesn't warp them. Even if it warps it a little bit, hey, I mean, sometimes Christmas trees lean a little bit. I find that even though I have one of those fancy little rollers for glue, your finger works just as good, if not better, when it comes to these small pieces like this. And once you put these together, the edges of it, or I guess the corners of each one, comes to about 1 inch on each side of the one below it. You can go through and measure that if you want to. I honestly just eyeball it so that the same amount is over on each end. It's pretty easy to do without breaking out the measuring tape. Once that's done, I left these to glue up overnight. Came back in the next day, took them all out, gave them a good light sanding to get any kind of squeeze out that I had. I'll take a second while we listen to music to say if you've enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe button, no pressure. If you hit the little bell icon, you'll be notified anytime we upload a video. And hit the like button if this helped you in any way or if it was just entertaining. I went ahead and pre-drilled everything. Obviously, you try to put screws in this, it's going to split if you don't. And I don't have one of those fancy drills with a little countersink on it, so I have to go back and countersink everything after the fact. And I do the same thing for the bases once I get them clamped to the tree itself. I'm using 1 5/8 inch deck screws. They hold pretty well. As long as you pre-drill, you don't have to worry about it splitting. And now that that's all done, it's time for staining. I'm going to do a couple of different things here. This first group I'm going to do with this special walnut stain. It looks pretty good. The second group I'm going to do with a kind of a gray stain, but then I'm going to go back behind it and do a whitewash on it, the gray underneath. Those are just the two that I'm doing right now to put up on my store, but obviously you can do these in any color you want to. you will probably notice much before I did that I left the top of that base unstained. When I edit the video, I could have left it out, but what's the fun in that? Everyone makes mistakes every now and again, so why not just show it so you can get a laugh on me? I did, however, go back and fix it at the end. Like I said, these are the two colors that I did. If you know of another color that would look good or something that you would like to see me put in the store, leave a comment down below. Once these were dry, I came back with a little light sanding with 220 to get that distressed look a little bit on here. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe and like, and we will see you in the next one. I hope to have some other Christmas ideas out here soon. If you have any ideas, feel free to leave them in the comment. Take care, and I really appreciate you watching and giving us support.
That was a fun and cool video to do. I'll leave a link to my buddy's candle shop, who's actually Casey Candle Company, in the description, and a code here and in the description, so you can get a little discount off if you're looking for some candles. The next video is going to be an edge grain cutting board that I did. This was a custom build for a client. Actually turned out to be probably one of the most beautiful cutting boards that I've ever done. I like the way it was laid out, and just, I don't know, you'll see in the video, it just wound up coming together, in my opinion, perfect.
So since this was a custom board, I don't lay them out like I do my bulk boards and try to do several at a time. Although I think I'm going to wind up with a couple of boards out of this. In any case, the customer wanted a board that was about 12 by 12. So we're going to get as close to that measurement as we can. They also wanted a board that was about 3/4 of an inch thick. So we're just going to break everything down to its rough final dimensions right here. We will come back at the end and square the boards up, cut a little bit more off. Again, I can't say enough about this rigid miter saw. It's done a great job, very smooth. And I will give a shout out to Shop Nation. I did purchase their dust collection attachment for this, because the dust collection from the factory is absolutely horrible on this saw. However, it has greatly increased by getting the dust collection attachment from Shop Nation. I will put a link in the description below, so if you're interested and if you have either this saw or the Delta, it will fit both. You can go over to their page and check it out. We're going to go ahead here and run all of these boards through the jointer so I can get me a good edge for gluing. Then I'll rip them down into their strips over on the table saw. I will make a note here, if you've never worked with Padauk, make sure you wear a respirator and be prepared for a lot of dust, or bright orange I guess you could say, but it's very, very messy. I had forgotten that I had used a 45 or 40 degree chamfer on another cutting board, so I needed to get this one back to 90 degrees. I highly suggest one of these nice digital angle finders. They are great. They're not expensive, but it makes it so easy to set your tables off. I believe I picked this one up on Amazon. I'll double check and I'll leave a link in the description when I find it. I'm going to rip all of the species of wood down to about 1.25 inches. The final thickness for the board I am custom making going to be 3/4 inch at their request. They wanted a little bit thinner board, but I think I'm going to get a couple of other boards out of all of this material, and I do want them to be about 1 inch thick, so I'm giving myself an extra 1/4 inch to play with on them. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and run each of these individual pieces through the planer. One of my favorite features on this Wind planer is the depth gauge on the front, so I know exactly how much I'm taking off with each pass. I just want to get everything down to a nice smooth surface for glue up so I don't have the risk of having any kind of gaps. After I send them through the planer, I go ahead and take them over to the drum sander. And probably one of the best pieces of equipment I've ever purchased. Also off camera, because I let the battery run down, I did not get where I cut down these small 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch strips that I'm using in this. I apologize. So next, on to the glue up. If you've seen my previous videos, I use Titebond 3 because this needs to be food safe and waterproof. Not to mention the fact that it gives you a little bit longer working time if you need it. Not so much with this project, but others you definitely need a little bit more time with the glue ups.
All right, let's see if we can get this thing out of the glue, or out of the clamps, I guess I should say, and get her planed up and see what she looks like.
I'm going to go ahead and take my scraper and get as much as I can off of that backside to give me a flat as surface as possible to run through the planer. So we'll start planing it down. One of the other features I actually like on this Wind is the fact that I can set a maximum height that I want to go down to. For this board, like I said, the customer wanted 3/4 inch, so I flipped this board, taking a pass on each side as I went. But I set this gauge here, that way no matter what I did, it would not let me go down any further than that 3/4 inch, which ended up working out very well. It was at this point I actually realized my dust collection was not working very well, and you can tell by everything coming back at me here. So I ended up having a 4-inch pipe come loose from my router table. Apparently I had knocked it loose and did not realize it. No wonder there was no suction. Here we're just going to go ahead and use the miter saw to square up the ends. Then I want to take them over to the router table. I like to put a little round over on the edges. So we're going to start with the end grain. Whenever you're doing a round over or anything like this, you really want to start with the end grain. That way whenever you come back and do the edge grain or the face grain, in this case, you have less risk of tear out on the end grain. And as always, it's a good idea, as you can see I'm doing here, to put a sacrificial push block on the other side just to also help prevent tear out. Here we're going to start the wonderful sanding process. In all actuality, it's been started already. I do things a little different than you might see some people do. Since my planer does such a good job of smoothing out the surface, I actually have a 180 grit paper on my drum sander. So once I get to this point, my first manual sand, or my random orbit sander, is at 220. And then we will do a water pop, and then I'll come back for a final sand at 320. I like to mark everything with a pencil just so I know I've gotten all the surfaces. Something else you're going to see me do here is I'm going to actually grab my air hose and spray while I'm sanding. If you've ever worked with Paduk, you know how fine that dust is, and if you have any light colored wood close to Paduk and you don't use an air hose to blow air on it as you're sanding, you will wind up staining your lighter colored wood, and you won't get that pop of the differentiation in colors that you're looking for. Here we're going to do our water pop to raise the grain. I simply just use a spray bottle, just lightly spray all surfaces and let it dry out completely, and then come back and sand with 320. And here we're going to come back with the 320 to do the final sanding, and then get this in a nice little bath of mineral oil. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you've made it this far, please click on that subscribe button, hit the little bell icon. That way you can get notified anytime we upload a video. I'm going to try to do these more and more. You'll see at the end, I decided after this to actually give this pattern a name. I like it so much. It's going to be something that's available to order in the future. So if you're interested, visit our website, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, while we do the best part here, and that's put oil on the board so we can see it pop, let's talk about the next video that's coming up. We're going to do I built a cedar chest video. It's basically a cedar toy box for a little girl. One thing I explained in the beginning of the video is at the parent's request, her name not be shown on here. I basically engraved with the CNC a name board that goes on top in walnut. So they didn't want that shown, so respecting their privacy, I did not show that in detail so you can see the name, but we did put it in there and it was a lot of fun. So again, there may be plans for this available. So if there are, I'll link them and you can go check them out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Just got done building this beautiful cedar chest. It's actually a toy box for a client's little girl. You're gonna see in the video, I have a sign I engraved here on the CNC machine. You're not gonna see the name. They didn't mind me posting the video. They just asked that I would not show her name on the channel. So of course we're gonna abide by that. So I have blacked that out whenever you get to it, but in any case, it just simply says her name across it. I've got a little epoxy as well in some of the letters of her name. But it's basically just a just like a little toy box. I made it out of cedar. It's got walnut trim, kind of matched the top with the sign, since we went with walnut for that. Got some dowels that I used. It's really more of an accent design than for structural integrity. But anyway, I hope you like it. There's going to be some things that I left out as far as recording. I explained that a little bit in those areas in the video. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to leave a link to everything in the video that I use. Maybe some of my favorite tools that I use occasionally. Special shout out to Taylor Toolworks. We're now an affiliate with them. Of course, I am also using their products as well in the video. I'll leave a link to everything in the description and hope you enjoy. Let's get to it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut these cedar planks down to pretty close to their ending size. Typically leave them a little bit long so I can do some final squaring up after the glue up. After we do this, we're going to take them over to the jointer. I'm going to go ahead and get me an edge. Really all I'm concerned with here is just getting a good edge so I can get a pretty decent glue up. I'm not really worried about the face or anything. I'm going to do a lot of sanding once we get to that. The great thing about having this long 6-foot bed on this shop box jointer is I can joint some pretty big boards and have plenty of support to do it safely. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get things set up over at the table saw. Again, I've done a review on them, but these Jessam stock guides are tremendous as far as keeping your stock against your fence. I don't do very many projects without using them. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in picking some up. Once we get all those cut to width, we're going to go over to the belt sander, the drum sander. I'm going to go ahead and run everything through, get them a nice uniform thickness. Don't really have to take much off of these cedar boards. When you buy them, like I do, they come with one side pretty much already planed down and faced. You do have to go ahead and do the other side, so I just basically stack them up and get them all down to the rough same size here. This is honestly probably one of the best tools I ever purchased. It cuts my sanding time probably a little more than in half on a lot of projects. Alright, the next thing is every woodworker's favorite part, and that is sanding. So typically I basically start out with 60 or 80 grit just to knock off the majority of everything. If I see any issues, little knot holes or anything like that, I typically will just fill them on this type of project with some CA glue. Go and get those sanded down. So that's basically what we're going to do here is I go through the grits. With this particular project, I start with 80, I go to 120, 150, and 180 for the final sand. I know a lot of you are familiar with Festool. Some of you may not be, but I'm going to tell you it was an amazing purchase switching over to this high quality sander for me. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in checking one out, but it's definitely worth the money on the sander if nothing else. We're going to go ahead and get these out of glue. I forgot to film the actual glue up on this, but I'm going to go ahead and get them undone. And these are just the smaller panels that I glued up off camera as well. It's going to go on each of the ends. Typically I just run a pencil over them so I can kind of keep up with where I've sanded and make sure I'm trying to sand everything uniform so I don't have any kind of ups and downs on there. There's going to be several things that you will not see me film on here. A lot of that has to do with, well, to be honest with you, some of it has to do with me completely forgetting to turn the camera on. But also a lot of it has to do with, I work a day job Monday through Friday, so sometimes when I come in the evenings, I need to take just about an hour, maybe less, to come out and do a few things. And trying to get the camera turned on and get everything set up is just not really feasible for me right now, having a full-time day job. So I apologize if you're missing out on something. If you have any question about anything I did that's not shown, drop it in the comments and I'll definitely get back with you and answer you. I make it a point to respond to every single comment anybody makes. Next, we're going to move on to assembly. I'm going to go ahead and just use pocket holes. It's a perfectly fine joinery for this. The little squares you see me using are actually, even though they're red, they're not woodpecker. They're actually a company off of Amazon, and believe it or not, they actually were very square straight out of the box. I think the whole kit, it's a pack of 4 different ones with the The bars and the clamps and everything were about $60 or $70. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to try them out. I've been very pleased with them so far. One thing you want to make sure you don't forget is glue. Like this guy building this chest here forgot. Go ahead and glue your joints when you're using pocket holes as well. Makes them much stronger. One thing I've tried to get out of the habit of doing is using my impact driver for everything, especially when it comes to pocket holes. Yes, you can use it, you just have to be really careful because that thing is designed to drive whatever it is you are on into the material. So if you're not careful, you will actually drive your pocket holes too deep and they'll wind up coming out the other side. So here I've tried to just use a regular drill to make sure that happens. Yes, I use Ryobi, or however you actually say it. I've had that platform for years and they've been really good to me. No issues whatsoever. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is go over to the table saw, and you'll notice for safety reasons I do have a tourniquet directly on my table saw where I can get to it fast. I highly encourage you to have several tourniquets around your shop because accidents do happen and you just never know when. These are basically what you might call, I guess, rails and stiles maybe. They're basically trim pieces that I'm going to put on the outside of the box. Really mainly for aesthetics, but I'm going to cut them down to 3.5 inches and 2.5 inches respectively, basically so we can get the same on each side. I'm going to sand them down to the same process that I did everything else because they will actually be on the outside of the box. Basically, I'm going from 80 grit to 120 grit to 150 to 180. It's just the grits that I chose. I'm actually going to be spraying the entire box down with a lacquer at the end of this. Here we're just going to glue everything on. I didn't want to use brad nails for this because I really didn't want to have them showing in the finished product. So I just got a couple of sacrificial pieces here and glued or clamped them up so I wouldn't make any marks on the outside. If you've ever worked with cedar, you know cedar's very, very soft. So anything you do and put pressure on, you're going to end up with marks on it if you're not careful. I'm going to go ahead and square up the bottom part of this. I'm just going to use my track saw. That's the quickest and easiest thing I can use in the shop. Just got a piece of insulation underneath it. It does really, really well, and I absolutely love this Festool track saw. One of the other favorite tools that I've actually purchased. It's really, really good ripping down sheet goods and doing things like this on something that might be a little too long to run through your table saw or your miter saw. Go ahead and spread some glue out here so we can get this bottom done. I'm using my fancy glue spreader here. Yes, I could use the fancy silicone one I've got, but if I did, this would not be so enjoyable. Pulling glue off your fingers. Everybody knows that. Good times. After I get the bottom put on, I'm actually going to be doing most of the trim in walnut. I've actually got a sign basically that's going to go on the top. It's actually going to be the little girl's name carved from my CNC in the sign. And again, I will not be showing it just because they've asked that I not show her in the project. They have to let me film it. I decided to go ahead and cut some 2x2 pieces to go in to reinforce these legs. Not that they're really needed, but hey, I mean, you know, anything that is worth doing is worth overdoing. Gonna go ahead and put some glue on these and throw in a couple of brad nails just to hold them in place. Really just to help, I guess, structurally a little bit. Again, they're probably not needed, but hey. And this brings us to probably one of my favorite tools that I finally purchased, and that is the Festool Domino. Please don't give me a lot of flack. I know there's other ways to do this. You could do it. Well, I say with biscuits, but I have my opinions on that. But definitely dowels will work too. But I absolutely love this domino. It has worked tremendously with other projects that hopefully will be revealed on here over the next few months. But this was my first time actually using it on a project. Not really necessarily for strength as much as alignment, but it did a tremendous job and definitely worth paying the money as far as time saved having to do this. When I did this top glue up, I wound up doing it in two separate glue ups. Well, I guess technically three. I did two smaller panels and then in the end glued up the two smaller panels together to make the final top. And I did use the domino for that. Basically what I did was on the first set, I used the tight section on it, which is the very first selection on your dial, the domino. And then on this one, I actually used the loose section. It definitely helped with being able to glue everything up and not having to have it absolutely perfect and having a little bit of leeway on it. Here we're just going to start the glue up and go ahead and turn these up, get some glue in the domino holes, get the dominoes set in, and then get everything pulled together. Again, super happy with the performance of the domino and being able to align these up. And I did bring out the fancy silicone roller there. once we got all this taken care of, this is the final glue up for the top panel. This is where I kind of stopped recording a lot of stuff. I had to try to piece together a few things here and there. Also, it's where I was doing the sign on top with the girl's name on the CNC, which I also couldn't record. So we jump into our spraying once everything's on. You're going to see also one of the things I did is I went in and did decorative slash I guess strength wise, I put dowels. I did walnut dowels you'll see on all the corners. I also did a walnut block that I'm going to actually end up putting the hardware on for the handles of the side. I did also glue and tack in a piece of oak on the top and on the sides where the handles are, and also where the hinge will actually go, just for extra structural stability because of the cedar actually being so soft. Bought this sprayer off Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description. It's great. Running at about 25-30 psi roughly. Works great. There you can see the hardware after I've installed it.
Okay, well, this was the last video in this little compilation here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not already a subscriber, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. Hopefully we'll have some more interesting things coming up for you to look at. We have also opened up our channel membership for you to be able to join. You get some behind the scenes stuff, early release videos, and things of that nature. And I'm trying to grow that, and there'll be definitely more things to come on that as we go. But I also plan on doing some channel member specific giveaways as well. So a lot of fun stuff I think coming. So it's growing a little bit at a time. So I'm super excited about it. So all right, I hope you enjoyed this. Thought I'd test out this long video to see how it went. This is the final product here before I delivered this, and they loved it. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I hope you made it all the way through this, and we'll see you in the next video.